Matt Rhule says that Nebraska is going to cancel its spring football game this year. Wait until you hear the reasons why. I have a lot of thoughts on this. Locked On Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman, 40 years as a sports talk show host and play-by-play announcer. And I want to thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. Of course, we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hit that free subscribe button down below, please. That'll help us out a whole bunch. And I'll let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. It's here. It's game week. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5. And if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com and get started. So, no spring game at Nebraska. It sounds crazy, right? Indiana football was some good news in the portal over the weekend. Bad news for Indiana basketball and Mike Woodson and Tom Izzo, just a bit short of a record. Plus, we'll have our top 10 Big Ten observations from the weekend right here. But Nebraska football coach Matt Rhule says there probably won't be a spring game at Memorial Stadium this year. And his reason may be as shocking as the fact that there may be no spring game. He doesn't want to showcase his players to the rest of the country so that other schools could come in and poach his players through the transfer portal. This is the crazy world of college football that we're in right now. I remember a couple of years ago, former Indiana football coach Tom Allen says he didn't want to have a spring game because he didn't want other schools learning his plays during the spring as he got ready for the fall. But Matt Rhule's reasoning is taking this thing to a whole new level of paranoia or a whole new level of being really intelligent. You decide. I love your comments on this too. He said, look, tampering doesn't exist anymore. What I think he meant to say is that nobody gets punished for tampering with other teams' players. He said players are just a commodity in a free, open, common market. And he says he doesn't want to open up his program to the outside world and have people scout players and say, such and such kid looks good at Nebraska. Let's go steal him. Let's go offer him a deal. Let's do this. He's not crazy. 6 of his players left in the late transfer portal period last spring, right after the spring game. And, we can ask, was that because other schools watched them on the Big Ten Network, which aired the game? Remember, in-person scouting is still against the NCAA rules, Connor Stallions, Michigan, but you can still watch them on TV. I did. I got a lot out of the game, actually, as the host of Locked On Big Ten. I watch all the spring games. It's a phenomenal resource for me. I don't want to see them go away. So was that the reason? Did the kids get scouted and then offer deals to leave? Or was it maybe kids were not happy with playing time or their place on the depth chart and they were going to leave anyway? We'd probably have to take each kid's situation on a case-by-case event. But no matter what, Rhule is convinced that the spring game has become a showcase for his players to be tempted by other schools and continuing the tradition of playing the game. It just doesn't make sense to him. That's what he said. Those are his words. It doesn't make sense to him anymore. So whether Rhule is right or not, it's too bad, especially at Nebraska. The spring game at Nebraska is one of the most successful such events in the country. Huskers fans live for this spring game. It's a great atmosphere. And fans wait for that spring game. It's a little pause, between now and fall football, which they're all looking forward to, and they get a chance to get a first look at what's in store for the fall. Oh, they love it. It's great. Last year's game drew over 60,000 people. That's a lot of people to watch a spring game / scrimmage. And it was the 4th most attended spring game in 2024. Ohio State, Alabama, and Penn State are the only schools in the entire country that drew more people to their spring games. And an even larger amount of people tuned into the Big Ten Network to watch the spring game live. I did. And they replay it on replay over and over. And, of course, last year, there was even more interest because of incoming 5-star freshman quarterback Dylan Rhule. It was the main reason I tuned in. Again, I find these spring games a valuable resource. Get to gauge a kid early on. A lot of times a freshman will come in and, you don't get to see them for a year or two because they got to sit. But, the spring game, you put your eyes on a kid and you go, hey, he's got the it factor. I think he could play as a freshman. It doesn't happen often, but that was certainly the case with Dylan Rhule last year. I was convinced from the minute I saw him throw his first pass that kid can handle being the starter on day one as a true freshman. And he did. Another issue that Rhule has with the spring game is that it puts players at increased risk of injury, which it does. I'll agree with him there. Last year's game 2 at Nebraska was very costly. Wide receiver Demetrius Bell and corner Blyle Hill, they were both lost for the season with injuries suffered in the spring game. In fact, I remember, again, watching it live, and, Matt Rhule let his assistant coaches coach each side, and it was kind of a casual event for him. So he went upstairs during the game into the broadcast booth of the Big Ten Network to talk with the broadcasters and, have a few laughs, good, nice, relaxed atmosphere, watch his team down below. And I remember when he was doing that, that's when Bell went down on the sideline with his injury on a pass thrown to him from Rhule. And it looked bad right there on TV. Now they kind of minimize it because they're sitting there trying to have a conversation with coach and whatnot, but it looked bad, and it turns out it was bad. I get it. An extra game, an extra practice, anything puts these players at risk. So I get his concern there, although you could argue these players could get injured during a regular practice in August or a game or stepping on the ice, going out of their dorm room in the middle of winter. It can happen at any time. But he also mentioned the financial aspect of all this. And he says, look, we're compensating these guys now. But at the same time, this team needs to be good. We need to practice. He said the bottom line is that this is about protecting his roster, protecting the roster not only from injury, but protecting it from poaching and keeping this roster together through the spring portal period so the kids don't leave. So you can go into the summer and get ready for fall football. That's what spring football is all about. One last look. And he doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to put that at risk. And he's digging his heels in. He was asked, would there be a loose scrimmage to wrap up spring football? Maybe Husker fans could look at that. And he says he highly doubts it. Athletic director Troy Dannon says perhaps there may be some sort of yet to be determined fan fest might involve the gathering of the football team and maybe the fall sports teams on April 26th, the day they would have, the spring game. Look, certainly there are pros and cons to all of this. With the transfer portal and how to build a team and how to keep a team. And, the good thing about the transfer portal, it seems to afford a very quick way to get your roster back together or maybe just fill in some important gaps. But having 2 transfer portal periods like we do now, one as soon as the season is over in the first week of December, plus the spring portal, it's created a lot of chaos. A lot more chaos for coaches. I don't know how coaches sleep at night, to be honest with you. Always got to wonder who's coming, who's going. I mean, back in the olden days, you had your team. Now you don't know who's who from one day to the next. And these guys make their living based on the decisions and the happiness of 19-year-olds. They can come and go as they please now. Now, certainly the players, have that right to do that. And they didn't always have that right to do that. And, of course, the other side of the coin is coaches make millions of dollars, in some cases, tens of millions of dollars per year. And they could come and go as they please, too. They want a better job somewhere else. But there seems to be some need for structure. And right now, there's absolutely none. There's none. Recently, a college football coaches committee voted unanimously to throttle down to a one-time 10-day transfer portal period in January. Now, the NCAA still has to approve that idea, but the coaches want this, and it makes sense. It's late enough that players can still play in their bowl games. They don't have to opt out because they've transferred somewhere else. And they can play in the college football playoff games. Bo Perbulo, the backup for Penn State, missed the whole playoff run because he was in the transfer portal. He left. It happens a lot. So this will help that. You kind of wait till most of that's over with, and then you open up a short 10-day portal period in January is what they want to do. And the other good thing about it here, and I'm going to go ahead and mention this. This is my idea. Nobody else is talking about it. But it'd be a time period in like the second week of January, 10-day period that's sandwiched right in between the semesters. So kids leaving one school could go to another school, get signed up for the spring semester. That's if we all want to pretend to still be under the ruse of the student athlete who's going to go to class, right? It fits the argument. And by eliminating the spring portal period, coaches can have some idea of what the rosters will look like as they plan for the upcoming season. Keep in mind, the spring portal period is right there, right up until the spring game for all these schools that do this in April. It's really hard to go through spring practice and then your spring game, and it's at the same. I think it ends the same day that the transfer portal ends. It's just a crazy time. You're putting your time and effort into kids that might not be here tomorrow. So I would get rid of the spring transfer portal period altogether and just I like what the coaches has voted for. Get it in that little 10-day window right in January when everything's done and looking forward. And then you can go to your new school, get ready for spring ball, get ready for the fall. And then all summer, you know what your roster is. I think that's the plan here. And then just maybe we can return to the days where institutions like Nebraska go back to hosting traditional spring games again that everybody seems to like. We'd love your comments on this. Hit us up on YouTube. Always check those out. And if you don't mind, hit that subscribe button. It's free right there at the bottom. And you can follow Locked On Big Ten for free wherever you get your podcasts. And you get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every day. And if you don't mind, also an extra effort, share, like, and follow if you don't mind. And also you can check out our website, talkbig10.com, number 10, talkbig10.com. All of our podcasts go there. Also, you can get merchandise. You want to get some Nebraska t-shirts, hats, all that right there on the website where all of our podcasts are. So feel free to check that out. Coming up, we got a lot to cover here. A lot of interesting stuff still going on. First of all, we're talking about the transfer portal. Big news for Indiana. Got somebody from Notre Dame who's pretty good. We'll talk about that. Plus, speaking of Indiana, the Hoosiers put up a good fight on Friday night against Purdue, but Mike Woodson might be running out of some time here with March Madness fast approaching. Tom Izzo, just a bit short of a Big Ten record. We'll tell you about that at Michigan State as well. We got a lot to do. And then my top 10 Big Ten observations from the weekend. That's all coming up next right here on Locked On Big Ten. FanDuel is so exciting. Watching games is exciting. You have FanDuel, it's even more exciting. Big upsets, game-winning drives, got the Super Bowl, all that good stuff. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same-game parlays, all that right there. And you can visit their website. It's very easy to maneuver around. Just visit FanDuel.com and join today. Get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this postseason as special as it can be, unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Well, thank everybody for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen each and every day, especially you everydayers out there. Thank you very much. Meanwhile, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below and share and follow Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. And check out our website, talkbig10.com. Before we talk about the Hoosier basketball team and their struggles, there was some great news for the Indiana football team. In case you missed it over the weekend, Indiana football got a nice pickup this weekend over the transfer portal. Notre Dame starting center Pat Coogan, fresh off the Irish's appearance of the national championship, is headed to Bloomington. Going to play for Curt Cignetti's Hoosiers. So good news there. Great pickup for Indiana. He's 6'5", he's 310 pounds, and he picked Indiana over Michigan and Ole Miss and several other schools. Very versatile. He's played a lot of games at guard also. You love having that guy can play guard and center. Every team needs a guy like that. Still got one more year of eligibility left, by the way. And the Hoosiers have been working on beefing up that offensive line, which was really good last year, but they lost some guys that were just out of eligibility. And so they picked up Ohio State tackle Zen Mikowski and also Colorado transfer Khalil Benson. So it's been a priority for Curt Cignetti. Now, on to Indiana basketball. Coach Mike Woodson is running out of time to make something happen here with this year's Hoosiers basketball team. Look, they had a pretty good effort on Friday night on national TV at Purdue, their rival, 10th ranked Purdue. They lost 81-76. Indiana actually had a 1-point lead late in that game, but they turned the ball over so many times in that game they couldn't pull off the upset. In fact, they had 20 turnovers, which led to 26 points for Purdue on the other side. You cut those turnovers in half, and you're winning that game easily. I think it was the second worst turnover performance by the Hoosiers this year. Everything else was kind of clicking for them, although free throws were a little shaky too. So now the Hoosiers have lost 5 of the last 6 games, and they still have some pretty tough games, the meat of their schedule coming up. Between now and the start of the Big Ten tournament, the Hoosiers have 4 more top 25 opponents on their schedule. Tomorrow night, they got number 17, Wisconsin. They're at number 7, Michigan State. They got to play Purdue again. That one will be in Bloomington at least. And they're at number 16, Oregon and Eugene. That is a tough stretch. That's a lot of tough games squeezing in here into the schedule in February. And Indiana's got to start knocking off a few of these. And, had they beaten Purdue, they've been a nice quad 1 win on the road. There's no question about it. And, of course, the backdrop to this entire story is, adding to the pressure. Indiana fans and supporters, they've been kind of loud lately, letting their feelings be known that Mike Woodson's program is not where they expect it to be right now. Been getting kind of vocal at some home games. So, look, the Hoosiers are currently 14-8. They're 5-6 in Big Ten play. And that has them squarely on the bubble for March Madness at this point, with still a month to go. Again, a road win last Friday would have really helped them out, but they didn't get it, so they got to move on. And for those that are unhappy with Woodson, by the way, he did sign a 2-year extension in 2023 that runs through 2027. Now, while Mike Woodson is struggling at Indiana, Michigan State's Tom Izzo, he's on a roll. Now, their 13-game winning streak did come to an end over the weekend at USC, 70-64. Spartans fell to 18-3. They're 18-3. First Big Ten loss. Only 2 Spartans cracked double figures in this game, and barely at that. Jeremy Fears Jr. scored 12, and Jade Aiken scored 11. That was it. Izzo said the game started bad, it finished bad. They just couldn't get into it. And on the sidebar, and Izzo says he really hadn't talked about this with his team until they heard it on the media, and then they started asking him about it a few days ago. But Tom Izzo is 1 win away from tying former Indiana coach Bob Knight, the late great Bob Knight, for the most conference wins by any coach in the history of the Big Ten. So, look, despite the game being at USC, there was a green and white contingency out there at USC, including former Spartan star and Hall of Famer Magic Johnson out there in LA. And the game was Michigan State's first sporting event in Los Angeles since the football team played in the Rose Bowl in the 2013 season. So they don't get out that way much, but things have changed now in the Big Ten, now with 4 teams on the West Coast. So back to Izzo for a minute. His next chance to tie Bob Knight's mark of 353 Big Ten wins is Tuesday, tomorrow night at Pauley Pavilion. These are Big Ten wins, okay? 353. That's at Pauley Pavilion against UCLA. We'll see if we can do it. And if the Spartans don't do it there, you can still get the mark. They got to take on Oregon. That's coming up next. And then they got a date 2 games from now after this UCLA game against Bob Knight's former team, Indiana. I guess that would be cool for him to break Bob Knight's record against Indiana, if you will. But that's all coming up. Love your opinions on the hoops. We do a lot of football here, but March Madness is around the corner. We got to talk some hoops. So I'd love to hear from you on Mike Woodson at Indiana. You guys are very vocal on the comment section. Tom Izzo, all that stuff. What's March Madness without Tom Izzo, right? Now, tonight, Monday, no hoops. So it's a quiet before the storm. Tomorrow night, Tuesday, pretty good slate of Big Ten men's basketball. 10th ranked Purdue is at Iowa. That's a Peacock game at 7 o'clock Eastern. Minnesota is at Penn State, also 7 o'clock Eastern on the Big Ten Network. Indiana back in action, trying to square things away. As we mentioned, that game against Wisconsin, 17th ranked Wisconsin. That's tomorrow. That's at 9 o'clock on Peacock as well. So the Big Ten doubleheader on Peacock is Purdue at Iowa, followed by Indiana, Wisconsin. There are a couple late games as well tomorrow night. USC is at Northwestern. That's 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific on the Big Ten Network. And number 7, Michigan State, as we mentioned, UCLA. That's a late one, 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific. That's on Peacock as well. So actually a triple header on Peacock tomorrow night. Women, no women's games until Wednesday night this week, but there is one to keep an eye on. 8th ranked Ohio State is at number 1 and undefeated, 21-0 UCLA. 9:30 Eastern Pacific, 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific on Peacock for that. So there you have it. Great basketball coming up this week as well. Again, hit us up with the comments on YouTube. Always love that. If you are new to our podcast, we always like to have features at the end. Mondays, we do my top 10 Big Ten observations for the weekend. Tuesday tweets. Wednesday, we power rank something. Thursdays, we look ahead to the Big Ten Network and Big Ten Classics and live action coming up for the weekend. And on Fridays, we make our picks, whether it be football or basketball picks. So that's what we do. Coming up next, my top 10 Big Ten observations from the weekend right here on Locked On Big Ten. All right, it is time for our top 10 Big Ten observations from the weekend. If you're audio only, no problem. I'll put it on the screen and I'll describe it to you in case you're only listening. That's great. All right, so our top 10 Big Ten observations. These are a loose order. I kind of grabbed 10 events, put them on the board. I want to start out with a shout out to Illinois and their women's basketball team. They were on the road at number 14th ranked Maryland, and they won it 66-65. Genesis Bryant with 2 big free throws with 6 seconds to go to get the win. So very impressive for Illinois on the road to get that one. At number 9, give a shout out to Ohio State's Devin Rhule. 29 points. It was in a loss to Illinois, but 29-point game performance by Rhule. Pretty impressive. Speaking of Illinois, they did get that win over Ohio State. Will Riley throwing in 24 points for the Fighting Illini. He makes our top 10 Big Ten observations as well. Number 7, Michigan's Danny Wolf. 16 points and 14 rebounds in the win at Rutgers on the road. Very solid, balanced effort on both sides of the ball for him. Want to put Washington's Tyler Harris at number 6. He scored 23 points in their win at Minnesota. Look, Minnesota, they're in the bottom half of the Big Ten, but they have been winning some games against some ranked teams at home lately in that barn over there. And so that's a good quality win for Washington and a good performance by Tyler Harris in that against the Golden Gophers. At number 5, I mentioned that Indiana-Purdue game from last Friday night. Braden Smith, a season-high 24 points in their 81-76 win over the Hoosiers. Number 4, Iowa women, their basketball team. Lucy Watkins, 27 points in their 76-69 win over ranked USC. Juju Watkins, 27. So what a game. That was great. The 2 superstars from USC and, of course, Iowa. Great women's basketball game there. At number 3, the Wisconsin Badgers. Do you know this about the men's basketball team? That they are number 1 in the country in free throw shooting. Yeah, and in their last win, in the last game over Northwestern, they made 14 of 16, and they made 11 of 12 in the last 10 minutes. So it was pretty good for the Badgers in their last game. Let's see what else we have here. Speaking of Wisconsin, in that game against Northwestern, John Tonje, 27 points, lighting it up for the Badgers. And coming at number 1 in my top 10 Big Ten observations for the weekend, I can't make enough about Indiana football, the transfer portal, going to get Notre Dame's starting center with another year of eligibility left, coming from South Bend to Bloomington, staying in the state of Indiana. nonetheless, that is a great get for Curt Cignetti's football team, as everybody wants to know, can they pull it off again? What will they do to follow up their 11-win season last year, the best season in the history of Indiana football? What's he going to do for an encore? Well, he's going to have a good offensive line, I'll tell you that. Those are my top 10 Big Ten observations from the weekend. Let me know if I left anything out. Any of your favorites that should have made the list? Always open to hearing that. Hit us up with the comments on YouTube, if you don't mind. All right, that'll do it. Great way to start the week. A lot of great news. We're keeping an eye on everything, all things football, transfer portal, all that stuff, plus some great basketball to get caught up on this week as well. Many ways for you to interact with me here at Locked On Big Ten. First of all, at Twitter or X, at Talk Big Ten, number 10. Don't forget our website, Talk Big 10, number 10, talkbig10.com. And if you don't mind, please subscribe. Hit that button below. It's free. And you can follow this podcast right now on your favorite podcast app, and to get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. Thank you so much for joining us. I can't wait till we meet again tomorrow. Tell your friends about us. We're out here each and every day. For Locked On Big Ten, I'm Craig Sheeman. We'll talk to you next time.